is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
You know where that is?
Not for sure.
How do I get this thing to just go back a couple?
Oh. That's Hugo's.
Yep.
Yep, I recognize it now.
All right, my volume is bad. I don't know what's going on. I'm using the new computer. I guess I have my volume down a bit. But I don't know how that intro went. I was hoping that would give people time to jump in. And, we send out I always send out the links right before the show. I'm not good at that. But anyway, this is Daily Gun Show. Coming to you live every weeknight at midnight Eastern and talk about guns for an hour. Gary jumped in from Kansas. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for the invite.
All right. And I don't know if you have any topics or anything. Otherwise, just Monday, but once we're on schedule, Mondays we talk about behind the scenes. Of course, it's too late for everybody to stay up anymore, but everybody's all afraid. Well, everybody's posting rumors and encouraging people to be afraid of the doom tomorrow or whatever. Just kick it like that. Okay. I don't know if you've been paying attention to that. I don't know what shows. What shows did you watch? You watch anything today?
I watched Fit and Fire. I think that's about the only one.
Oh, well, what's that dude talk about? Or is that a dude or a chick?
That's a dude. It's a guy here in northern part of Kansas. Has a fairly decent following, but he had some gun rights guy from California, and they were talking about let's see, it was the assault weapons ban in California or something, about how they're getting ready to fight it or something like that. So it's kind of interesting.
Oh, snap, an actual 2A discussion.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So there's been, like I say, a lot of hype or whatever, fear-mongering about this YouTube thing, policy.
No, they didn't even mention that.
So anyway, that's Clover was doing his chat about it, and Budget was jumping into that, but that's on the stupid phone. I don't do good watching Instagram phone. It's one way. It's like blog TV, basically.
Right.
All right. Well, so a bunch of people are out there chatting. If they got any topics or whatever, let us know. Daily Gun Show is supposed to be a chat similar to what you'd have at the gun show or whatever. So one of the reasons I wanted to go live is because you can't have a show if you don't go live, sure. But talk about gun shows, and that's kind of what this podcast has been about since the beginning. That's why we call it the Daily Gun Show. Actually, it started off being called Gun Chat, and now it's called Daily Gun Show. But went to the Big Ass Gun Show here in Arizona yesterday, and yeah, I had a lot of fun. So I'm guessing I know the answer, but when was the last gun show you went to?
Would have been Wanamaker back in November.
See, when there's somebody in here, that gave me a chance to eat a pickle and then swallow. And I don't know, maybe he went to another gun show. I mean, I went to another gun show. Well, so it was like a month ago already, right?
Yeah.
Actually, more than a month now. So anyway, yeah, I went to this really big gun show, and it's a neat one because since it's a big gun show, it brings a lot of people together. And since it's NFA like thing, it brings interesting people together, but from around the country, I guess what I'm trying to say. So, and many people that don't meet up except for maybe once or twice a year. And whenever you have a situation like that, that's one instance to miss, right? So if somebody has something going on or whatever, then they don't get there, then you don't see them for 2 years kind of thing, right? So it all just kind of stacked up, and a whole bunch of people I knew were there. And I think it was, I don't know, we can talk about Tulsa too, because we've been to Tulsa a couple of times. I thought Tulsa was kind of the same way. It was a good show, right? Like good vibe. People were happy. Nobody was mopey, and there was money changing hands, and it sounded like people made a lot of money before the show even started, right?
Yeah, it seemed to be. Everybody was in a mood to buy and sell. So yeah, about one of the better ones I'd ever been to, as far as I was concerned.
I wish I had like taken notes over the years, because to somehow correlate that with the economy or something, or with something. Maybe it has to do with the prior to an election year or something, or I don't know, but whatever. It just seemed like a really good show. I met up with Heavy and Angry. I don't know if they've ever been on this show. Angry used to hang out on this show's chat when it was during the day for a long time, and when we did the tactical quiz, he was a basically one of the champions of the tactical quiz, really. But he's never really been on at night, and I don't know if Heavy's ever been on. You know who Heavy is?
I've been in chats with him and stuff like that. I don't believe I've ever met him in person though.
Okay, well, you've been in chats with him.
Yeah, Heavy B, right?
Yeah, okay, good. So I didn't know if thing about gun channels going on its 7th year now. I don't remember who all has met each other along the way, because not everybody comes in and out at the same time,
Right.
So and then you know who Angry is, because he's on Mass Chat quite a bit. I don't know. I assume. Do you watch Matt's Chat on Mondays ever?
I'd say probably better than 50% of the time I do. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you know who Angry is, and then I don't know if you watch the Wednesday ones. Then he's sometimes on a Wednesday chat too.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is on here since yesterday. This banner thing. I think it's annoying because unless I guess I can make more of them. But having just 2, it's going to make people go nuts, right? It's like water torture. Not the waterboarding, but like the water drip torture. It's like slowly make you go mad.
Right.
George, get out. So I saw Heavy and Angry, and then I think that's everybody that channels people would know. But anyway, on some of the people that I've known from the industry or whatever, just knowing people from gun shows, talked to the people that promote the gun show, chatted a little bit with the Small Arms Review people, and then yeah, just overall a really good show, and learned a whole bunch of new stuff, which is always neat. Yeah, just like you say, I was saying I guess I don't know if I've posted these videos yet or what I've done, because I've done stuff live and I've recorded some stuff, but there's good shows, or there's shows that are always good, but then there's things that'll kind of all stack up, and it just all kind of came together this time. So I don't know, like I said, and also I don't know if there's a way to say what the economy is going to be like, or if it's an indication of the economy, or what the election might be like, based on, I don't know, the optimism or the atmosphere of the shows.
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
Just if there's a way, if it's an indication of something that the shows are positive instead of being slow and mopey.
You'd almost think so, but I'm not real sure. I mean, it's got to be, the economy's got to be good for that to happen, obviously, and people got to be in the mood to buy guns, and that can either be a positive vibe or a negative vibe sometimes. If people think they're going to lose that ability, they'll buy real quickly too. So,
but I guess that's the difference, right? Maybe like you say, there's like that fear, panic, and it wasn't that kind of. I didn't sense that, and I didn't sense like a crazy, I don't know what to call it, like super patriotic, again, fear or like drive or anything. It was just sort of people were having a good time. I didn't see much Trump stuff at Tulsa. I saw quite a bit of Trump stuff at SAR.
Yeah, the previous year I saw more Trump stuff in Tulsa, but yeah, not this last time, really. A little bit, but not a whole lot.
Now, of course, this time with them beating down the impeachment stuff day and night, I guess that could be a factor of the Trump stuff too. Probably people are getting sick of that to the nth degree.
Yeah, I think so.
So, nice thing about shows is they bring people together. Like I say, I went up there for one day and I'm kind of kicking myself now because sometimes, even if it's a good show and I know I can look around and have fun because I walk 6 miles, walking a little bit of back and forth, but 6 miles, that's pretty decent at a show. I know I'm going to be able to see stuff up there, but, I figure when it's a bad year, it might take an hour or two to see the whole thing. On a good year, I want to be there for 2 days. I just, for whatever reason, I had some stuff happen. So I went up there on Sunday and I planned on, playing it by ear. And I try to get there early because I'm cheap. And I get there before the employees show up at the parking booth. So if you get there before the people take money for parking, you don't have to pay for parking. It's just that you got to sit in the parking lot for a while. So at least at this place, because it's at a fairgrounds and people camp there. So you can just pull in midnight if you wanted to, I suppose, and just sit there all night. But I didn't do that. I was at the gym and stuff. So I came over, I don't know, 7 or something. So a couple hours before the show started. And then I just did stuff on the phone. But so I figured I might get in right at the beginning and be out of there in a couple hours and be back in Tucson. I think I ended up being there most of the show. And that was, again, walking around the whole thing only takes a couple hours. So a lot of that was just BSing. I think a couple of times I needed to wait in line sort of to, I wanted to talk to somebody. I didn't want to interrupt them. So there was a little bit of that, but most of it was just having conversations and BSing. So that's what this show is all about. And I call it the Daily Gun Show for a couple of reasons. I'm a big fan of gun shows. And I don't know, we can get into that as much as we want. But the factor I'm talking about right now is this idea that it's an environment where, and I'm assuming most people have been to one, but for the people that haven't, it's an environment like a flea market or a swap meet where there's, you're there to buy, but that's not necessarily the only reason you go. You might be exploring, you might just be people watching, you might know that you're going to be meeting up with friends or something. There's snack bars and stuff, and depending on the show, I mean, people do show up sometimes if it's like the snow cones or the hamburgers or the barbecue place, there's that kind of element to it. And a place where people from work or who used to work with each other or church or civic organizations can say, hey, let's meet up at the gun show this weekend. And, you mosey around or, help somebody look for a scope or something or anyway, so there's that, I don't know what to call it, like the gathering, the whole idea of the rallies and stuff, that part of the First Amendment for the right to assemble. And we talked about it in Honda's chat when he talked about the laws and stuff that they specifically put it as part of the Firearms Owners Protection Act or 1968, I forget. But they created gun shows specifically so that FFLs could do business at them. So it's sort of a flea market, sort of a swap meet, but then it's also the only place that a gun shop can do business. So it's certainly a business, place of business, basically. But then, again, there's other things going on, except for most of them, I think, kind of keep politics out of it. It's pretty much, all kinds of stuff are there, from food to vehicles to outdoors and camping, and sometimes nonprofits and rights organizations are there. So anyway, so that's what an element of this, that element of the gun shows is what this show is part of, or is part of what this show is. And I've been ranting here, but I don't know. The idea is to have the conversation with the audience out here as well as the people that are in here. So Gary jumped in tonight. I've been hogging the mic, but the idea is to have a conversation. Use the live element, and since it's Monday, encourage people to think about these tools that we're using and growing our knowledge or sharing information or our experiences, skill sets, and what works and what doesn't. But I don't know. It's either this show's shitty or something, or it's too late, or whatever the excuse. But nobody shows up anymore, so I don't want to throw it all on Gary. I do appreciate you showing up, but we'll shut up here in case you want to throw anything in here. But I know it's late for you too. Are we on the same time schedule now, or same time zone? Is it 11 o'clock for you?
It's 12:05 right now here.
Okay, so it's even an hour later for you. So with that, I'll shut up. It's 17 minutes into the show. If you want to take it for a bit, we will. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up because the audience really hasn't said shit for 27 minutes. Am I crazy? Is that? Yeah. And then said nothing for 20 minutes. I don't even know if they're out there. Started kind of.
I mean, I could pretty much echo some of the things you've said, and I'll admit, as far as gun shows go, I don't go to that many. Usually one or two that are near me every year, plus Tulsa, but I have opportunities to go to several. And I don't know why I don't go to more, probably because I'm afraid I'll spend too much money if I do. But if you've got a gun show around, if you can't make it to Tulsa, then try to make it to something close to you. Just the experience of being in a place with that many gun owners and stuff like that, people who more or less have the same opinions and agendas as you do, and basically they just want to be together to have the freedom to buy, to sell, and just to mill about and look at stuff if that's what you like. But just the gathering like that, and I definitely recommend stuff like that. So you can do the same thing in a show like this. You have shows like this so people of a like mind can get together and talk about things. So yeah, I mean, I'm not good.
Maybe overhear something and go, oh crap, maybe I have something to add, maybe not, maybe take it away and explore it with somebody else and then come back with something to add.
All the things you've heard of, you can actually see, sometimes touch. You can get good looks at it and stuff like that. It's like, oh, so that's what that really looks like. I've only seen it in pictures, but pictures don't always do things justice. So, and yeah, and if the price is right, yeah, you could take one home.
Always, yeah, exactly. And then you have fun. Like the guy I got I guess I didn't post the video, but I was haggling with this guy. He had something $2 for $1, and I'm like, well, I can't pass up anything that's less than $1. So he's like, they're $2 for $1 or whatever. So I'm pulling out the $2, and I go, now can I get 5 for $2? And he's like, sure. And I'm like, right on. So not only did I get something that's less than $1, but then I also got to haggle. That's just fun. I don't care what anybody says. It's just super fun.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that going on. Last time I was in Tulsa, more so than usual. People were receptive to coming down a little bit on prices, making deals, and that was fun watching that happen.
Yeah, and so often these shows, that gets frustrating for me, but I know that's what other people are into, is buying like whatever the new 3-letter gun is, or 2-letter gun, or whatever model little gun, right? Everybody's buying these damn guns all the time. And it's never fun guns. Who's ever buying like little cool 22s or anything cool, or like even rifles? I mean, it's just the crowd we hang out with buys, CCW guns and Target guns, I guess. But I like going to the shows and just maybe you're looking for like old revolvers or maybe old fashioned lever guns or old semi-autos from some movie or something, and then you find somebody who's got one in, not a store but a person who's got maybe one or two even, and then boom, like you find out that they're another collector or they've got a whole bunch of knowledge on it, and you get a knowledge dump from them. It happens to me all the time on the ammo. Again, that's one of the reasons I dig older stuff, is to dig into what all I don't know, find out what interesting stuff, and so much stuff relates to it. So you find out, oh wow, this had to do with, this was a big part of that, or like this stuff about Tulsa. Dug into that through my interest in ammo, found out that all that ammo, all that lead came from just north of Tulsa. It was obnoxious out there. He was up because somebody was probably splashing around, trying to fish out there. All the lights woke him up.
Yep.
I think he's got a link, doesn't he? Oh, you guys get blind copied.
Yeah, I wouldn't know.
Oh yeah, there's a link to him out there. Let's see. Does it tell me real easy how many people? I don't know. So one of the things I would like to do though, and not necessarily with this show, but just in general, is get gun shows to be different, evolve. Red October, I think, was a great example of what gun shows could do. We see these things like the gun, what they call gun, not gun resorts. What the hell they call the fancy gun shops? I'll think of it when I'm not thinking of it. The real fancy gun shops. Somebody out there I'll know.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're.
Yep, I'll think of it when I'm not trying to think of it.
Boutique, is that what you're after?
No, they got a name for the fancy new gun shops. But anyway, there's these fancy new gun shops that are doing things like really interesting lane setups where the targets move and lights happen and there's video and stuff. Or maybe they even have like the projection video and the scenario training and stuff. But usually real fancy showrooms and then places to have like lounges, I guess, food and that kind of thing. See, now it's driving me nuts because I'm trying to think of it. But
sounds interesting.
Just the fancy country clubs, that's what it is. Like going to a golf course or something, except they're for guns. They got one in Austin, they got one in Colorado. There is one in I think there's, no, not really. I thought there was one in Tulsa. But anyway, the idea of just evolving the plain old gun shop into more of an experience, taken in those cases to like, I guess, high end, because that's the other problem, is like they're really expensive. But in Illinois, I saw some places that aren't country clubs, but they're certainly nice gun shops. Like they could have just as easily been like a really nice car place or like a motorcycle showroom or something, like just really nice gun shops. People put extra thought into what the shop's what the experience is gonna be like, I guess. So anyway, it's just as the shops evolve and as other things evolve, it'd be cool to see gun shows evolve. And it's a tough thing to bring up because whenever I've talked about it over the years, more people don't like gun shows or have nothing to do with shows or are ready to let them rot on the vine. And so there's just not a lot of interest in coming up with ways to see gun shows evolve or change. And that's why I thought it was neat to see Red October take competition, a gun show thing, sort of a swap meet, and bring it all together.
It sounds kind of neat.
Yeah, the problem is it has to be on a range, and it worked really good in Vegas, but will it work in the middle of Georgia? Would it work in Pennsylvania, or wherever it is that they do the one for like a week. They don't have a range there, but if they added a range or if they brought it to a range, would it still work? I don't know about giving them a spit shine, like you're saying, as much as just evolving. I don't know. Like having what if they had a video game LAN party or something, or some sort of like for a long time gun shows featured, and I still like it when they feature some sort of like a display table where somebody will bring in maybe their collection of such and such rifles, or like we see at Tulsa with the Ruger stuff. The people bring in all the Ruger collections or something like that. It's neat to see shows that have collectors bring in their stuff.
Yeah, I think it's amazing to see those big collections, and you just sit and think about how much money these guys have invested in this stuff, and they spend an awful lot of time just taking it places and showing it off so other people can look at it. Which I guess if you've got something really nice, that's one of the values of it, is to let other people look at it too. It's kind of bragging in a way, but in a way, it's just making sure that history and everything gets preserved. And people always enjoy seeing it up, like I said earlier, up close and personal.
Oh,
So,
dude, I can't even tell you that. Owning something is one thing, and I'm sure there's people that like to just own stuff. But most people even watch the internet. That's why the internet is what it is. That's why YouTube is what it is people sharing it and letting people know about what you're interested in it or what you've learned about it, and hearing what other people are interested. When you're, a fan of a thing, whatever the gun is or the ammo or the period of time or the person or the unit or whatever it is that you might be interested in, and then somebody comes along and can tell you like, hey, did you know this aspect of it? I mean, that's the whole thing. So sharing those collections is a big part of it. So I'm thinking, well, I know that Arizona Arms, the there was a nonprofit organization out here in Arizona that would host gun shows. So there was like a couple of big promoters out here. One of them was a family thing. Actually, they're both family run sort of things. And the third one was this organization. And it was just a bunch of people who regularly went to gun shows. They would join the association, and then the association promoted the shows as a nonprofit. So any of the profits from the gun show would just go to fund the next gun show and keep the prices low. And part of that was, it was Arizona Arms Collectors Association. So one show a year, and then during the shows, like every show would have tables that were free. I think they were free, and you could just set up your collection, and then they would go around and judges your collection, and there would be like the collection of the show, and they'd win a prize or something. I think it was just for bragging rights. But that way you could just go to the gun show and bring your collection, set up a table, and just have your collection, whatever it was there. And then people would come to the gun show just to see all these collections, maybe buy stuff also too. But, they'd know that part of the gun show was seeing these collections of things and hearing about why the person collected it and what's so neat about them. Finding out maybe something they own is collectible, and maybe, oh shit, I didn't know this was something that's worth people collect. And then once a year, they had a whole show that was nothing but collectibles. And that went on for years. And I never got to experience that, but, that's something that, I don't know if that necessarily would come back again, but that's the kind of thing that's different than most shows nowadays. Don't even have the collectors tables anymore, let alone a whole show devoted to it.
what's neat about the collections is they're not all the same. I mean, you've got people who are just interested in old shotguns, and they'll have a whole table full of old shotguns. Other people are milsurps. You've got people that just have entire collections of very, very tiny pistols. So there's people of various, walks of life, and this is what interests them. But if you walk that gun show, you're liable to find something that interests you. It's not just like this guy is the same as this guy. There's all kinds of different collections out there. The bigger the show, the more variety there is. And then you've got your people with their knives and the swords and everything else. And it's just all kind of a big, hey, look at this. You're going to find something that interests you there.
So I guess what I was thinking is, there could be all kinds of ways that shows could be evolved, I guess, or added to bring more people in. Encouraging clubs and organizations to meet at the shows. Again, show off their stuff or present their stuff, maybe. Um, have I don't know, everybody has ideas or whatever. There's a bunch of people out there. Now we got 19 people watching. That's almost enough to keep it going. And then it's only been, well, we're still getting comments all the time. So we haven't had too much of a break in comments. So if anybody's got ideas, I guess, for that, what could make shows more interesting? Again, letting hobbyists come in and do their meetings there. So often people complain, well, I don't know if they complain, but they say that they want to join collectors groups because they can just do it online. There's no need to have a collectors group. But one of the other complaints is that there's nowhere to have the group, or there's nowhere to have the meetings. So if you're already having a gun show and you've got the facilities and the parking and you're attracting people, then maybe you leave the facilities open during the night. Like a lot of times the show will set up on a Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. They've got a facility that they've rented and they're not using it all night, and they're paying security guards to be there all night. So why not maybe use some of that time, bring people in, in the afternoon to the show, and then stay for the evening stuff. That would work on both Saturday, Sunday, and potentially Sunday if you keep people there on Sundays, where so often shows start closing up in the afternoons. While the nighttime stuff is happening, the show could still shut down. They still only have to bring, relatively little equipment out of the show on a Sunday night, and they could literally have that venue occupied and bringing in money 100% more of the time that they use it or that they're renting it right now.
That's true. Never thought about that, but yeah, you could do a lot of different things.
And even if you just had it like when I was a little kid, the high schools would stay open and you'd have clubs happen inside the high schools, the rooms or whatever. And, the same kind of thing. You'd have like, I'm thinking of a couple of venues where, there's probably some kind of sports thing. I just don't know what they are. But, there's a big room in the middle, and then there's this outside where the seating, like around the outside of the seating, there's all that, like, I don't know what you call it, like aisle or lobby or just room for lines and shit, like where all the people would stand until they got inside. All that room you could have for some kind of a thing. And then, I don't know, either have things that are meetings that are open to the public, or maybe just meetings that aren't necessarily open to the public as much as just if you want to show up and watch, feel free, or like wander. So if there's multiple meetings happening that we're, chatting about collector stuff or having conversations about reloading or whatever it might be, like so-and-so is going to have a Q&A about reloading, or somebody's going to have a thing about hunting, right? Then have a Q&A. So now people can just kind of mosey around what would have been, standing area for lines in the morning, or I don't know, in a sports thing, probably lines or concessions maybe. And then boom, they can bring concessions in, bring some food trucks in, or just bring a food trucks into the parking lot all day and all night at a gun show. Make the gun show also the biggest, best food park, or organization, or whatever that's called, conglomeration each month.
Yeah, you could have some kind of a carnival type atmosphere, perhaps maybe a big, barbecue type thing where people got together, and yeah, you could definitely play it out to where people don't just take off at night and the place is abandoned. Might as well take advantage of it.
All right, well, I'm trying to eat pickles here. Gary's
Vandalistica says, and then gun church on Sunday.
Well, I got there on Sunday early, like I was saying, and they do usually. Most gun shows will have non-denominational. What do they call it? Non-denominational I don't know, congregation. I don't know what they call it, assembly, for the people that camp there. Because a lot of people that vend at gun shows will, camp, or they'll travel gun show to gun show in a camper, maybe with a trailer, and then they'll set up at the show. But because they're not, trying to make a living, they'll not get a hotel room. They'll just set up in the parking lot. So they'll a lot of times have a non-denominational thing going on Sunday
Yeah.
before it opens.
Probably the only time they have a chance to do something like that. So it's not such a bad idea.
Pink is saying about the old time one. I think it's old. I'm gonna go grab the almanac.
Well, Pants has got a good idea too.
Or I think it's after. I should have said. The old gun show is in February of this year. Pink. February 28th to March 1st. It's like literally a month after SHOT Show this year for some reason. Unless I read the shit wrong. It's a month after. So I got the almanac in my hands. How many other people have a copy of the almanac out there? That could be a trivia question. I don't think anybody would know, except for the person who knows, the person who has it. So I guess that tells you one person. But I can tell you how many gun shows are coming up that are worth the shit next year. We got the SHOT Show in January, 21st to the 24th. If you're out there and you're going, you could join the chat because you have a fucking link. Then we got the Great American Outdoor Show that I mentioned before. That's the February 1st through the 9th in Harrisburg. Imagine Pancakes will shut his restaurant down for that window so that he doesn't have to serve anybody any food. Let's see, there's a couple expos, which not too many YouTubers that I'm aware of attend. I don't know if that would be potential or not for people, but I'm not going to get into all those because they're mostly hunting expos. There's a bunch of them. But then there's that Las Vegas gun show we're talking about that used to be just basically the weekend before or the weekend after SHOT Show each year. And that's the oldest or the longest running gun show in Nevada. And that's been going on for a long, long time, I guess. So that's in basically February into March of this year, or 20. Then you've got, I guess there's technically a gun show at Knob Creek. And that would be an experience. I've heard that's a really good gun show. Then you got Tulsa, April 4th and 5th, 2020. So I don't know how many people will be going out there. Nobody's been saying they're going to SHOT.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anybody mentioning it. Who's going to SHOT out there? Come on, wake up, people.
They're all sleeping. Now we got fake accounts. We got bogus accounts. Because I've never been to 20 without a thumbs down. So we know it's all just bogus accounts logging in. 22, see? Bogus. Then we've got, you said Tulsa. We've got the Blade Show. You're interested in going to Blade Show ever? In Atlanta? Usually in June.
I've never even heard of it.
Oh, really? It's been going on for a long time. It's basically the SHOT Show of of knives, but because it's just knives, there's just not that many people that show up. So it's only the size of a large, I want to say large gymnasium, but it's probably bigger than that. It's not a very big place, though, from what I've heard. I've never been, though. I've been wanting to go for a while. It got kind of popular with certain people. And you got to have a high tolerance for super expensive knives because there's a lot of super expensive knives there.
That's one thing about it. I'm not much of a knife collector. If you threw, I know a few of the major brands you buy now, but as far as collectibles and stuff, I'm not educated. I'm not really that educated in firearms, what I've picked up in the last 5 years, but I know definitely nothing about knives.
Yeah, knives are interesting, but that interesting to me. looks like the next one would be TriggerCon, if you call that a gun show. Pig's been to it. No, from yawning because of the lack of chats that's coming in. This isn't even a conversation. It's just chores for me and Gary to have to say all this stuff. So let's see. We got TriggerCon, and that to me seems more like a big parking lot sale inside of a building. I don't know about big. Not maybe like parking lot, but what do they call it when all the manufacturers show up for like an open house, like a big gun shop's open house, except inside of a building. So I don't think it's as large like the manufacturers that show up aren't setting up SHOT Show type booths. In other words, they're just setting up like a card table. But I don't know. Have you seen pictures of TriggerCon?
I have. It's been a while, but yeah, I have seen some videos of it and stuff like that. But it's always a smaller venue, I believe.
But is it booths the size of SHOT Show?
As I remember, not quite, but at SHOT Show, people have got space to expand too. So,
right, that's what I'm saying. So, like at a gun show, you got like a table's worth. I figured it was more like a gun show, like a bunch of tables or pop-up booths, maybe.
Yeah, none of them are really that big.
Pink is saying it's about as big as the law enforcement room at SHOT. Okay, so that would be, what is that? Probably a couple of hundred booths. It's TriggerCon, from what I understand, was just a store who had a parking lot type of sale, like a lot of stores on their anniversaries or for times a year or whatever reasons, they'll have manufacturers show up and they'll bring, samples and swag, patches or stickers more often, and brochures or catalogs back in the day. And sometimes like Winchester or somebody big will bring like a trailer, and maybe it'll have mounts in it or some kind of a target system, or if it's an optic company, maybe something to see through the dark, or I don't know, whatever, just stuff that they might bring to a state fairgrounds if they wanted to show off their products. Or not quite like a booth you'd bring to SHOT Show, which is a 10 by 10 booth with all your product and a couple of salesmen who are on the clock. They're going to industry shows, they're going to sell stuff to stores or to law enforcement departments or military or something. And this is more like the people that are going to show up at parking lot sales. And the Arizona has this big game and fish event. They'll show up to something like that if they want industry to be there. So it's a little smaller than a booth. That's what I kind of figured it was, that it started out, or I've heard that it started out with that kind of an event where the store just started to have like a big parking lot sort of event, and then it grew until they put it inside. And it's maybe 3 or 4 years in, and it's somewhere up in Washington State. And then they've done a decent job of promoting it, I guess, because they get people to show up, who have large social accounts, and keep it on the radar for people. So it's in the my list here. Now, I don't know. I think it's the only one of its type of that scale. Now, it's not the hugest scale, and I'd like to think it's not the only one. And if it isn't, that's my whole goal, is to find those others that are like that. Vandaliska saying we're lucky to have those opportunities. I mean, yeah, we should definitely appreciate it. I mean, it's definitely work. And you can't all be gone in a moment. They're definitely trying to get rid of gun shows. The reason I call it the gun show loophole tour, is because they're under attack. But I don't like to call it luck, because it didn't just happen. We didn't dig Second Amendment protected rights out of the ground. A bunch of fucking people died for that shit, and a bunch of people strive for it. So I don't want to. I'm with you. I get the sentiment, but I don't call it luck. But yeah, we should definitely appreciate that shit. And that's another reason I think it sucks that, they're kind of starving themselves out. We know Bloomberg hates them. They fucking call it the gun show loophole because that is, intentional bullshit to try to keep people from, thinking there's something nefarious happening at these things. But you know, they're definitely some of the coolest events out there.
And
Definitely.
yeah, I think until you've actually had a chance to go to them, I mean, I knew they existed before I ever went to one. I had friends that said they were coming down to Wanamaker to the gun show, and I couldn't envision what it was like to just come down and be around guns for a couple days and stuff like that until I actually did it. And the first, one I ever did was one I covered with the Gun Channel's people, and then I kind of understood. But it's different than maybe what you expect, but it's definitely something that I envisioned maybe going in and be bored after an hour or so, but trust me, you're not going to be bored after an hour or so unless you're just that close minded. But just for the things you didn't even know existed, and you walk around and here they are. So, yeah, definitely you should attend a gun show, invite other people to attend them with you, expose other people to it and show them that it's not what they've been told, it's not what they think, and definitely even the smaller ones in your area. And I'm just as guilty as everybody else about missing some, but there's gun shows of all sizes. I went to one that was small enough that you fit the entire thing into what would be a community center in some cities, I'm sure. Uh, but it was in a small town, and there was actually quite a bit of action in there too. So they're going to have a regional flavor, I suppose. A gun show down in Florida was going to have something that Florida people are interested in, and one in the northern part of the country is going to be a little different. I'm sure they're all a little different, but they're definitely not what the left is portraying them to be, which is people out there to break the law and cause trouble. I haven't seen any of that. So,
Oh, I'm sure it can happen. Let's not deny that anything that attracts any number of people has the potential of being trouble. But yeah, to suggest that it's whatever, like a significant portion or anything but a chance, occasional thing is crazy. Plus, they're patrolled by ATF and local police and probably more law enforcement than that. So they basically bring a bunch of activity focused on guns all into one place. So you would think people that are paranoid or scared about freedom of gun ownership would be happy that it's all taking place under the scrutiny of so many law enforcement all the time. In fact, very little illegal activity could take place at a gun show because there's so much of it there, and there's overt and covert law enforcement all over the place. But the small shows you're talking about, size of a big cafeteria or just a big room. I've seen some small gun shows. Man, they can be really neat. Yeah, you definitely have local flavor and local styles, local interests or whatever, but then it's a gun show. So potentially somebody moved there from someone else and who knows what they brought. So they're kind of like a lottery, right? Or like throwing the dice, I guess. Hitting the random generator.
and you're just likely to run into somebody you didn't even know was into guns, and they show up at a gun show with you, and it's like, oh, you like guns too?
That's interesting that you said that. I remember one of the cool gun shows we used to have here was, I think it was ice sport hockey. But the gun show was never in where the sport was, so it was underground for whatever reason, or like in a big hole here in Tucson. So you'd go downstairs into this big arena. Maybe it was parking, like an underground indoor. No, it wasn't parking. Anyway, it was some big ass underground indoor room. And then I knew that across the hallway was the sports thing. I don't think I ever went in there. But the gun show was neat because it was underground, right? It was in this big hole. And if you came in at the ground level, you could look down into it from the glass up above. And anyway, it's just a neat venue. But anyway, I was in that gun show one time and I'm buying something and I look up or looking at something, I look up and it was the weatherman or the weatherman from, I forget what channel anymore, but this was a long time ago when I first moved out here. So this was there was cable, but everybody knew the local weathermen because you went to cable to watch HBO. You went to local TV still to watch weather and stuff. So yeah, like you say, you never know who's going to be into guns. But yeah, a friend from work or church or school or something. And that's the kind of thing you don't get to bring that up anymore at some of these places, right? So now you see somebody at a gun show and you can be like, oh, cool. Like now we know that we're both into guns. Meet your future spouses there. You know that when you meet someone that you could get along with at a gun show, or somebody that's into guns and has CCW, that they're vetted by the state and they're lawful and good character.
Yeah, you got a point there, yeah.
Carrying a gun. Let's see. So that was TriggerCon, and that's at the end of July. Wait. Yeah, I just had DC Predator. So it's the end of July, August 2nd. That one's a few days long. Then you got another one at Knob Creek. Big Sandy, I'd like to say. I'll just throw an honorable mention out there, but I don't think they do the gun show anymore. But you can buy a couple of things at Big Sandy. And of course, Wanamaker is November 14th and 15th of next year. And then the SAR show, the thing I just went to, the start of this whole thing, next year is December 4th through the 6th. So I've just been going through the list of the shows I'm aware of. But the one I missed in here was, I guess I didn't put it in here. I didn't think it was worth putting into the big firearms thing for my almanac. But there's a gun show in Colorado for antique guns. And that's another one I think that's worth mentioning. If people are literally writing this down for any reason, if they might be doing that. That sounds like an interesting show, and I've heard a lot of people talk about that one. And then for me, there's a St. Louis ammo show that I'd really like to attend someday. I'd really like to see what it's like to go to a gun show that's just ammo nerds. I think there might be some ordnance there, but mostly just people that collect bullets.
I'm sure there's a little something for everybody, places like that.
Well, I don't know about that one. That one seems pretty nerdy. I don't even know if reloaders would like going to ammo collectors because they get really nerdy about caliber, about bullets. Like I had I'm cheap, but I also am interested in keeping my collection going. I had to put some serious thought into buying or not buying this one for the collection where this guy got a, out here in Arizona and probably other places, they'll do the aerial target practice, when they're in the Air Force or whatever, the pilots have to go practice somewhere. So they'll shoot into these targets or whatever, which are just laying on the ground out here. And you can go out there and find the cases and the links and the projectiles. They're just laying there. Some they're under the ground or whatever, sometimes under the sand, but they get kicked around depending on how close you are to the targets. They're in different stages of being beat up or bent or anything. But half the time, maybe not half the time anymore, but back in the day, it sounds like you could just go out there and pick up perfectly good cases, perfectly good projectiles and links all over the place, just with a metal detector or whatever, and just picking them up, but just buckets and buckets and buckets. Because think about how many pilots have to practice and how often you have to practice before you get good, and how many pilots we've had, and how many planes, and how many places they have to practice. There's only so many places that all these pilots practice, and there's only so many places that they shoot at. So that's a lot of ammo that they're just leaving laying on the desert out there. So anyway, this guy had picked up some, and he had polished it all up. My problem is that it looks stupid when it's all polished up. It looks like somebody made a bottle opener or something. It looks like a polished brass fake bullet or something. It looks dumb, but it's kind of neat because the projectile looks just perfect, right? Except that if you look at it, it's got rifling in it because it had already been shot. So he just stuck it back together or whatever, but then he polished it up all dumb. But I really wanted to buy that damn thing. But he wanted like $4 for it, and I refused to pay $4 for it. It seemed like
I'm sure somebody took it.
he had a pile of them. I mean, if I could change my mind at some point. Thing is, I have black ones like that. I have found a link of 4 before. Like I have some that I've found, but I don't think I've found enough. Mine are all gross. Mine are all dumb looking, like all beat up and shit, like if they fell out of the air. I've never gone out to places where you can just find them like nice, and I don't think they're just laying out there like that anymore. And I don't think you can just walk out to those places anymore. But the places where I've found them are just laying around out here in Arizona. What I understand is the ones I have are live rounds. When they land over here, if they had live ammo and they still had some in their guns, they just have to cycle it out, and they would just cycle it out as they're flying, and it's just on the ground underneath them places. But it looks like that, it's all beat up like if it fell out of the air. But it's black. They don't look like spray paint. They just look like they're basically, when they tarnish, they turn black. So it's a really neat black. I've got one in my belt. But a lot of people have them out here. You can see belts and belts, because back in the day, people would go out and get them, and there were, as many as you wanted to hike out with, basically. So I've seen 6-foot long belts and stuff at gun shows. People want usually like $150 for a belt like that.
Yeah, that's quite a bit of money.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. And nobody's going to shoot them. So I'm sure they don't work anymore. I mean, they could, I suppose, but. So anyway, so that was chatting about that guy who polished some up. We're down to 16 people. So talking about gun shows has basically repelled people who ran away. So I don't know, we've gone 57 minutes. We got 3 minutes to wrap it up to make it an hour show. Or somebody who got the link could jump in, and then we can marathon it and go for 7 hours tonight. See which way it goes. I'm done eating pickles, so.
And one of the guys who's really interested in it's somebody who's clear across the globe, who lives in a place where he can't get to stuff like this.
So they don't have anything even close to a gun show where you're at? We have, you got swap meets still, Gary? Where you're at?
I don't know if they're called that per se. There probably is.
What are they called up there if they're not swap meets? They got a different regional term for them, or they're just?
No, if they have them, I'm just not aware, but I'm sure they exist. That would seem logical. I don't participate in a lot of the smaller regional. There are smaller groups around here that talk guns, like Kansas, Kansas concealed carry and stuff like that. And if I got more involved in those, I'd probably be more aware of what goes on around here, because we're just Kansas is pretty much a collective of small towns with a few big towns thrown in, but mostly it's just a bunch of small towns where you've got a lot of rural people and stuff like that. So,
well, I'm talking swap meet, like where you get like a drive-in movie theater when it's daytime, and they'll just have everybody drives in, opens up their trunks, and then has whatever. Sometimes people will bring a table or a roof, and then you just walk around looking at everybody's junk, swapping, trading.
Oh yeah, I mean, occasionally I don't think there's any right in this area, but I know they have things like that around here. Yeah.
Okay, because we got one that's been here since I've been here. So I mean, it's been here for decades, but it's been here way longer than me. And there's a couple of people that'll set up like permanently, you could say, even though it's a temporary place, they'll kind of set up a little shack type of shit that they never take down, and they just kind of rent the same little property or whatever each weekend. And it's been there forever, so it's gone through phases or whatever. And I think for a while it might have even been all week long, or definitely expanded from like Thursday to Wednesday or some shit. But yeah, flea market. So they call it swap meet. Flea market, I guess, is inside. Swap meet is outside, or is there a difference?
We have outdoor flea markets around here.
Okay, but so I don't know what the difference is between a flea market and swap meet. His mom literally just sent me photos holding a wheel gun. Photos of yourself holding a gun, or your mom is holding a gun?
Yeah, that's
Okay. So we got the one that was that's been out here for a long time, but then we've had smaller ones too, and I found all kinds of neat stuff. But sometimes gun-related stuff, they usually don't have guns.
Okay, he said she's holding a gun.
Yeah, she's probably at a gun show.
In New Zealand, and she hates guns, so must be something that surprised him to see.
Could you do a live gun show, a live flea market where everybody brought a bunch of stuff? They take their webcam and point it down, and then go through a bunch of shit they got. And then if anybody wants it, they can go, oh, I'll take that. Put it in a box and send it to them.
It's kind of like those online buy, sell, trade things. Flea market swap meet. Never been to a gun swap meet.
Yeah, I've never been to an outside guns show, except for if you count Red October, where they had a swap meet there. Except for if you count Big Sandy, where there's like a gun show in a big tent. And that's kind of what I understand, or what I've seen pictures of Knob Creek. It's sort of like one of those big, tents that you'd have for like some kind of an event outside. And then the outdoor gun shows. But I think that would be neat. What if gun shows were just outside? I mean, obviously, weather could be an issue, but besides that, I would think it would just be cool. And having it outside near a range or something, obviously would be so much more cool.
As long as you could have it in a place where it wouldn't be too humid or anything like that, where it wouldn't actually affect the guns that were out there. But
it's true. It would be for certain types of guns, I suppose. It wouldn't be for every gun, you're right. Like there's just certain times you'd never bring some guns outside, right?
even that's true. But yeah, it would still be a great idea just to see them in the daylight and stuff like that, because things take on a different look outside than they do in a controlled environment with artificial lighting and stuff like that.
Yep.
And in the old days, that's what they did.
I don't know if anybody was watching Matt's show, but I went to this dollar store to get some stuff, and I just watched not too long ago this series about the toys that made us, and they did a thing about the Transformers, and obviously they talked about the robot toys, talking about Transformers, but in a couple other of those episodes of the toys that made us, they've talked about they mentioned the robots, because the robot toys from Japan interweave with some of the other toy stories also, or the origins of some of the other toys. So it's gotten me, my grandma used to buy me the metal robots that were way before Voltron. You're older than me, Gary. Did you ever play with robot toys?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they had stuff like that even back in the 60s.
That's what I'm saying, because back in the days before the cartoons and shit, it was just sort of like a random, some toy guy would go over there and go, oh, maybe these will sell in the United States. And they would just bring over some robots, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or at least that's the way they made it sound. So I can remember going to Toys R Us when I was young, and there was never the same stuff at Toys R Us 3 weeks in a row, or at least 3 visits in a row. It would be different stuff all the time, and that was the best part of it. It was kind of frustrating because you couldn't get any kind of consistency with the robots. Sometimes they'd be good and sometimes they wouldn't, but it was certainly always a different robot. Anyway, so I was always a fan of these things. That stupid TV show got me all hyped up about it. And then I go to this dollar store, minding my business, and I see these little tiny robot toys. And they were $1.50. And they're basically Transformers. They're a dinosaur robot that turns into, well, they don't turn into anything. They're a dinosaur robot that if you have 5 of them, they turn into a giant robot. So I guess when they're just a dinosaur robot, they don't turn into anything. They just are a little dinosaur robot toy. So they're not really a transformer. They're just robots that all join together to be a big robot. Anyway, I'm just fiddling with it here, and I'm amazed at how cool it is. Like how, what's the word? Like how articulate the big ass robot is, considering it's made up of little tiny dinosaurs. So that would be $7, right? $7.50. I think this would be pretty damn cool for $7.50 if I was a little kid. So I think I'm gonna take it apart and put it back into the 5 boxes because it's almost like a little puzzle, putting each of the little 5 robots together because there's no directions at all. And then find some kid to give them to.
Yeah, that'd be neat.
Yeah, I'm totally stoked too because now I didn't have to go actually buy any toy that it cost anything, and I'm getting total satisfaction out of it. I'll be able to have been fiddled with them tonight, and then it's out of my system.
Sometimes it just takes something to make your mind explore and go places it hasn't been. Those are the best kind of toys. I mean, when I was young, I didn't have any notion of you didn't spend X amount of money or Y amount of money on me or bought it at this store or that store. If it was fun to play with, that's all I cared about.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it was different before there was a bunch of cartoons and stuff. It was just you were playing cowboys or you were playing something or you're building. I remember trucks were cool because you could just go out and dig around in the dirt underneath of some bush or something. Or if something, it was always great when they were putting in some kind of construction. There'd be some kind of hole, and then the hole meant there was a big pile of dirt next to the hole. No, half the time your parents wouldn't let you play in the hole, but you could play with the pile of dirt.
If you're lucky enough to have a little rain, then you could make little rivers and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, heck yeah! Or get a hose out there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, speaking of that, this is totally off topic and whatever, but I seen this thing, and I don't like grass at all, and I'm not longing for grass or nothing. But I thought this was pretty clever, and I probably would have done it if back in the day somebody would have mentioned it or showed it to me. So it's you just have some lawn, right? Any place you got lawn, and it's like some cardboard. I wonder if I could just where would I find it? I don't remember where I seen it. I think I seen it on a YouTube video. So, if you take a piece of cardboard and you take another piece of cardboard and you cut a slice into each one and you can make like an, try to describe it, you make like an X to give it some. Imagine doing that a bunch of times. So you create sort of a 3-dimensional like grid or whatever. So you've got like this, corrugated grid that you've made out of cardboard. You set that on a grass and then just carve away at it until it sort of looks like a chair. And now you've got like this chair sort of thing made out of cardboard that's got all these cavities in it. They filled up the cavities with dirt and then threw sod on top of it and watered it for a couple of weeks. And then what you end up with is a chair of grass that just exists in your yard. You can go sit on it and it's just made out of grass.
Huh.
I don't know how you cut it. I guess you got to cut it with a weed eater or by hand. But I was like, damn, that's cool as hell. And I would have totally stuck that underneath like a tree somewhere. And I know my grandpa would have been like, no, let him have it. Let him keep it there. That's cool. Because who would have cared? It's just a lump of dirt, it's, kind of in the form of a chair. And Alyssa's saying he still remembers when the TV cut off overnight. Yep. I can remember the first time that I went somewhere where the TV shut off because I grew up where it was on all night. And the first time it went off and I was a little kid, I was like, what the hell happened? Is the world coming to an end? There's no TV on anymore. And they're like, nope, in some places there's no TV overnight. It's like, what?
No, we didn't have cable in my town until I was like 10 years old, but I always thought after midnight or so, you just didn't watch. There was no TV to watch, basically. If you fell asleep with the TV on, you'd wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning with a test pattern on your TV. And if you went to different channels, they'd all have a test pattern. So.
Yeah. And it was until the mid 90s. I still remember places in Wyoming in the mid 90s that didn't have TV at night. In broadcast. There was no there was no cable at all. I mean, I guess there was cable somewhere, but I didn't have cable. So all you had was broadcast and it all went off. I can remember radio. Well, a lot of radio stations still go off at night, I guess.
Yeah, there were a few radio stations you could pick up. Like there was a big one in Chicago. Late at night, you'd be able to draw stations from a long ways away. Because I'd lay in my bedroom sometimes. I'd listen to Dallas or San Antonio or Denver. Stuff would just really skip across the country, those signals sometimes, especially when your local one shut down and didn't interrupt with it. So you could hear radio from other parts of the country, which I always thought was kind of cool. Nowadays, you just take it for granted. But
Oh, well, I don't know when they did it, but there's like super stations and they were allowed, they paid more, I think, or something. And then they were allowed to up their numbers. So everybody else would shut off because they did. And then the super stations were allowed to up their amps and they would blow out to, bigger coverage at night, the AM stations.
yeah, AM stations.
Yeah, I don't know how many of them there were, but there were, and I think that was intentional, right? So that they could have coverage for emergencies or something. And then I know that down here they told me, this is before it's way when I was a little kid, so it was before I moved out here, that the stations in Mexico would just blow out over across the border just because they could. So you could get pirate Mexican stations in English and stuff. They would just be down there where FCC couldn't do nothing about it.
Well, that's interesting. Of course, I wouldn't have been close up to the border to pick it up, but
yeah, exactly. You had to be down here. I think that I heard that's where Wolfman Jack came from.
Huh. I remember him.
Because he was way before my time. But I think that was, again, back in the day. And if it was I-10, if I-10 was still here, maybe that was the point, just to get people driving down I-10, maybe. And there's quite a few towns down here. I'm sure they could probably get to Phoenix and El Paso. And I don't know if
those times, and at that time, if you were on the highway after midnight, it was generally always just truckers. Of course, they'd run 24 hours a day, so maybe they needed something to listen to too.
Yeah, well, always people traveling. You're on a vacation or having to go somewhere, traveling salesmen, but yeah, not like families traveling. Like still now, the streets are pretty much empty.
The little town I grew up in, all the businesses were closed by 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and there'd be hardly any traffic on the highway. Sometimes us kids that were out, being ornery, didn't have anything better to do, we'd sit in parking lots along the highway, and occasionally you'd see a truck come by maybe once every 10 or 15 minutes, but not a whole lot of traffic.
Tim was saying the TV would start in the morning with the agricultural report. Remember that?
And they'd sign off at night, usually with the national anthem. Well, they'd start with the national anthem sometimes, and then a lot of times when they'd sign off in the evening, they'd either do that or they'd do that high flight poem thing, and then test pattern with a high pitched beep. And if you fell asleep in front of the TV, that would usually wake you up. You'd beep, and you knew it was time to go to bed.
But I can remember that farm report thing because your parents would be up reading the newspaper or cooking or whatever and be like, "What's a pig belly? How come they care so much about orange juice? Like, how come we're not paying that much for orange juice?" Like, telling about wheat or whatever.
Yeah, talk about the price of hogs in Chicago and stuff like that.
C4 is asking how it went. Because he doesn't always want to actually use the link to jump in here. He has.
He just wants me to make the sound again. We'll make it for him in person one of these days. Wait till he's about ready to fall asleep, then I'll go outside his door and do it for him and wake him up. He likes to make fun of me being old. It's a privilege to get to be old so I can annoy people with my old stories.
Wait a minute, did you just watch the second Jumanji or the new Jumanji movie?
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh, you're basically just quoted that one dude at the end of the movie. It's like, I learned it's a privilege to be old.
Well, cool.
All right. Well, so again, we're a little over an hour now, and goal is to chat about guns every night. I'll continue to keep doing this. I'm working on a couple of different projects, and they're time sensitive. I guess I should say a couple of different projects that are time sensitive to the end of the year. So I'm giving them a little bit of priority because this show will keep going sloppy as it is until I can get it in gear. But those other projects are to help shape this or sharpen this one up. So appreciate everybody joining us while it's sloppy. And thanks to Gary for jumping in. We'll continue to give people links. Every once in a while there's a good one in here. It's the problem with the daily show. It's not always going to be perfect, I guess, but we'll continue to effort. So again, had a great gun show. That definitely charged my batteries. I want to thank everybody who participates in this show and all the other projects. That's what keeps me going so that we can continue to share and grow our Second Amendment. Run into another year here. I guess everybody's paranoid about tomorrow. I'm not. I don't know if like Gary said, he wasn't even listening to that, or he didn't even, nobody's been paying attention to that.
Well, technically, it's already tomorrow here, and I still have a channel. So.
Oh, see, there you go. But it's another opportunity for everybody to, get another experience with the idea that there's change in YouTube constantly, and it's going to be either misunderstood or intentionally misinterpreted by some in order to, get people to follow a video or watch a thing or, share or something. And it's not a bad thing. I'm not scorning anybody. We just get older and wiser and we get used to it. And Chicken Little, right? Gary's familiar with that one.
Oh, yeah.
We need to, whatever, like, what's the word? You learn from experience or whatever. So we'll move on and continue to chat about some of the tech stuff, new platforms, new apps, and hopefully, like I say, come up with ideas to make gun shows, newer, or bring new ideas to gun shows along the way. A little after 1 a.m. Central.
Yep.
Yeah, this is the kind of problem with, well, I guess it's not a problem. I was going to say it's a problem for the way that we don't change time zones, but I'm the only one that really has a difference in time here. So it's barely midnight for me.
Yeah,
sorry for those out there. Tim, thanks for jumping in. Matt Flutter said hey at the end here. And Tim, sorry to say that. And Gary survived the purge. Oh yeah, you should make a shirt. I survived the purge.
I survived the purge. Yep. One
So
of the
there's only a way to make somehow an image of YouTube puking.
Take more than that to get rid of us.
Well, I mean, I'm the first one to say, hey, if YouTube is going to take us all out, great, because then we just get stronger going to another platform. But, something like a gun streamer or gun tube, what they need is something to happen that pushes everybody off. I don't want that to happen, but, worst case scenario, if everybody was right, good. Then we just go strengthen and learn and not get suckered by a YouTube again. But it didn't happen, so everybody's just going to go on as usual.
Yeah, I'm not going to let the threat of something like that ruin what I enjoy doing. So find another way to do it if I have to.
Well, we'll just continue to evolve the way everybody's doing it. And whatever. That's starting a whole nother discussion. So that's what Mondays are about, though, is talking about the tech. Tuesdays, we talk about 2A. So I might talk about some 2A topics tomorrow. Wednesdays, I guess, entertainment and that kind of thing. And Thursdays, industry and history. And then Fridays would be the quiz and that kind of thing. So I think that's the way the format's set up right now. So again, thanks, Gary. Thanks everybody for watching.
You bet.
Let's put in one of these. Let's see if I can find a mood that'll be good for leaving. I'm just going to YouTube's audio library for these.